Well, that brings us to our last speaker tonight, Mr. Mark Ludwig. Met him a couple of months ago, picked him up from the airport about midnight, and we went home and went straight to sleep, and had a good conference down in San Marcos. Thank you, Mark, for bringing all this together. I want to give you the mic, and let's welcome Mark Ludwig.
Okay. First, I do want to, so that I don't forget, I want to thank all the people that helped put this together. So if you were one of the people that volunteered, could you please stand so that we can see the time and effort some of these people put together to put this on. I know Cheryl, Dwayne, you've got the girls in the back. I know Orlando was helping at the registration. Oh, we got that.
Surprise!
And we,
so I was hoping you did this at the end because that's what we were going to do. But you switched everything up. So, so on behalf of all of us here in Texas, and I probably shouldn't be the one to do this because I'm a transplant, but we want to make you an honorary Texan.
yay!
So check that out.
Oh my gosh! Walker, Texas Ranger, here I am.
Quite a few people in the room, they all chipped in.
Oh, this is awesome. Hold on here.
Stuart's recommendation.
I was going to say, I'm talking. I'm going to look like the dorkiest cowboy you've ever seen, but do I look like a nerd or what? I would get beat up on the ranch. But thank you very much, guys. This is cool. Levi's going to love this. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I didn't expect that. Pretty cool. All right, I really am going to give my talk for this on. But, so I want to thank all the volunteers. I do want to thank everybody for showing up. I know that there's, I keep thinking something's falling. But I do want to thank every one of you. I know, some of you, I got a chance to visit most of you. I tried to get a chance to shake your hands, and I really do appreciate you coming out. That's what it takes. Legislators want to see people, and sometimes people think, well, gosh, I don't have political connections, or I don't know how to talk to legislators. Guys, I'm not kidding when I tell you, you showing up tonight, you're just as much a part of this team as anybody else. So we appreciate you coming, whether it was just across town. I think the long distance winner was Mr. South Carolina there, who flew in from South Carolina. So Jeremy gets the long distance award there. And Ruth came in a close second flying in from California, so she gets, and Alabama too, that's right. And the people watching on Facebook Live, like I said, you guys are just as much. It really means as much. Whether you just like a post, whether you share it, it's getting a reach and exposure to other people. I have so many of my friends back in St. Louis that had no idea about this issue, but I try to not slam my personal page. I try to keep as much on the Americans for Equal Shared Parenting, but I share every once in a while some posts that I think will reach people who don't understand our issue. And so if you're on Facebook, we appreciate you. The Texas leaders, I can't say enough, and some of you know, I'm not just saying this to, fluff your skirt or whatever down here, or tip your hat, I guess I should say. But you guys have, I believe, the most leaders of any state in the country, bar none. And there's no reason in the world why Texas shouldn't be leading the way in 2019. When I look around this room, and I hate to mention people because I always leave somebody out. I apologize. It's never intentional. But I think of somebody like a Jeff Morgan up here in the front. And Jeff, and I think Hunter too, and I think of Melissa too. I think some of you know this past year, it's, I've donated a lot of time working on these efforts. And it's hard to hold down a job when you're going out of town every week. And twice this year, my condo fell into foreclosure. And these guys helped me out at the last minute to save my condo, and I just can't say enough for the three of them. I mean, they literally, I would be out on the street if it wasn't for the three of them. So I really do appreciate you guys. But I look around and I see, Rustin White. I think, I see a Stuart, Josh, Dwayne, Cheryl. I mean, you guys just, Orlando in the back, Louise, where's he at? I saw him somewhere earlier. Yeah, Louise. So many different leaders up here. Like I said, the best in the entire country. And I've been very fortunate, very blessed to be able to work with a lot of great leaders across the country. I think some of you have seen, just got back from Washington, D.C. last week. and brought a few of the crew. What I'm trying to do is we meet states. So as I meet with, say, Ted Cruz and some of the other Texas leaders, I'm going to bring some of you guys up. Last week I met with the Illinois contention, and I brought, I don't know if you guys, are you guys able to advance it, or? So last week I brought up a few people. We brought Chad Loudermilk, who Jesse knows really well, from Illinois, with Illinois Fathers for Equality. That's Jeremy Roberts, who's, some of you know I've got a brain cyst, so I don't think as quickly as I used to. And so Jeremy makes up for that. He's the brains of the operation. I just sort of make the connections, and then when I do, Jeremy straightens everything out. And then we also have LaShawn Ford on the far side there, who's the state representative that sponsored the Illinois bill, HB 4113. But just so neat to bring them, and it was fun today to get a chance to experience your leaders down here. And like I said, I've seen leaders all across the country. I was down in Alabama this year with their bill, but I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, the people I saw today, you guys can have a lot of confidence you're in the right place. You really can. So real excited about that. But just real quick, I want to give you guys an idea, and some people are having a hard time understanding, well, you know, I thought we're trying to get a state bill passed. Why do we need to work on this rebuttable presumption? And you have to realize, I give the analogy, it's like Blockbuster. Blockbuster didn't realize what business they were in. They thought they were in the VCR business. They didn't realize they were not in the VCR business, they were in the entertainment business. And Netflix came along and just completely annihilated them. We are not in the 50-50 business, we're in the child parenting business, trying to make sure that kids have a relationship with both parents. And so we may take different angles. And we need both angles. We need the state and we need the federal. Because until we get Title 4D changed, we're going to be like a hamster on a treadmill. Making a lot of movement there, but not really making any true progress. I'm not going to go through the section that I prepared on Title 4D, but just to touch on, like Josh said, it started out as a merit-based program. It is no longer a merit-based program. Over 90% of the people that are in the Title 4D program would never qualify for welfare. And that should absolutely irritate any taxpayer in this country to realize that we are paying taxes. Our money that is supposed to be in the Social Security Fund is instead being spent on programs that have nothing to do with a means-tested program. So it ended up with the mission creep, as I said, 19 million people are in that Title 4D program that should not be there. And as Jesse mentioned, in Illinois this year, the head of the Illinois State Bar Association talked about the fact that Illinois would lose tens of millions, if not $100 million, as a result of this. The two parts to the program, I don't know if you're able to keep up or not. There's two parts to the program. One is the reimbursement of 66 cents on the dollar, and Josh already talked about that you know, any government agency loves if they can get 2/3 of, you know, imagine if you owned a business and somebody came and said, for every 3 employees you hire, we're going to pay the salary of 2 of them. You would hire a lot of free employees, and that's basically what has ended up happening. The incentive pool is what's really creating the problem. And not going to go into, Ruth had mentioned earlier, some of the different factors that go into that. But what we're really working on is to change the incentive. And they always say follow the money. Well, there's a lot of money going into the Title 4D program right now. And what we've been trying to do is get states to chase, or we've been trying to chase states to get a bill passed. Well, most of you know, anytime the federal government gives money to a state, there's strings attached to it. There's bad strings in most cases. Why can't we get strings attached for our benefit that are going to change the entire program? Can you imagine if a state had to have a 50-50 rebuttable presumption to get any of their Title IV money? How many states would be beating a path to get that bill passed quick so they don't lose their federal funding? And that's one of the things that we're discussing right now in Washington. Right now we've got a very small window of opportunity. I think we're always going to be able to make some progress. But we have a very, very rare opportunity that just hasn't taken place. There have been people working on this for 25 years. And great people, much better than me. But unfortunately, they either had an administration that wasn't receptive to change, they had leadership in HHS that was not receptive to change, or they had a Congress, both the House and the Senate, that wasn't receptive. To my knowledge, this is the first, not to my knowledge, this is the first time ever in the history of the Title 4D program that we have a White House that is receptive to changes, the leader of HHS that's receptive to changes, the Senate and the House. And I have personally spoken to all 4 of those organizations. See, they're excited about it. But I tell you what, we've got the Trump administration, and I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. I would say the same thing if it was Obama in office. I don't care who's in office. If you want to get legislation passed, you better get a relationship with whoever's in that White House. And there's no time to knock whoever it is. And so, like I said, I realize there may be people that don't like Trump. All I know is he's the first president that we've had a chance who has been receptive. I've met with his legislative director on 2 occasions now that admits that there is a challenge that needs to be addressed. HHS, man, do we ever have some good people that came into HHS in the last 2 years. Very, very receptive. And most of you have seen some of the Facebook Lives of the different members of the Senate and the House that we've been meeting with. So you'll be hearing more about that in some of the visits. And I threw some pictures in here just to give you an idea, and I hope it doesn't come across like a ha-ha look at me or anything if they come up there. But you're almost in catch-22. If you don't show pictures of who you met with, people say, oh yeah, you say you met with them, but you really didn't. And then if you show pictures, then they think that you're on an ego trip. So I don't know, you can't win for anything. But just to give you an idea of a couple of things we're working on. Ollie North, some of you remember Lieutenant Colonel Ollie North, who's now the head of the NRA. And once again, I don't care if you're for Second Amendment or against the Second Amendment, the largest lobbying organization in the world is the NRA. And I'll tell you what, the NRA understands that our issue is connected to theirs. And it's a lot easier, instead of us trying to get 6 million people behind our issue, what if we can lock arms with an organization that already has 6 million people? So I met with him a couple months ago. He'll be at a meeting that Melissa's going with me. Jeff's going with me too next week. So they'll get a chance to meet him next week. Some of you know Kellyanne Conway, who's the one that ran the campaign for Trump this time. She's the chief counsel for the White House. Her and I got to be friends 20 years ago. She actually tried getting me to hire her firm for a polling company. It's a funny story, but it's more funnier for her because she told me when I was with her the last time. She's like, you realize I got Trump elected. If you would have hired me, you would have won too. Andy Biggs from Arizona. That guy is an absolute rock star. Right there, U.S. Congressman from Arizona. He's going to end up being the chief sponsor of our bill in the House. Great guy. If he makes it to Texas, I know this weekend he's going to be in St. Louis, but he makes the rounds to a lot of conservative, so if you follow a lot of the family values type coalitions, he normally speaks at a lot of their events. LaShawn Ford, some of you have seen, Chicago right now, Rahm Emanuel has announced he is not running for re-election. The Chicago mayor is probably one of the absolute most powerful mayors in the entire country. Can you realize how powerful it would be if we had a guy like LaShawn Ford as the mayor of Chicago? So I tell you what, guys, he is in the running basically amongst the chatter that's out there. They're saying that he is one of the top 5 people that they believe could pull off winning that election. As shared parenting people, you need to be sharing the you-know-what out of every post that you see with his picture so that he is all over Facebook. Look at my personal page. I've been doing a lot of things saying hashtag Ford for mayor and stuff like that. If you see those, please share those all over. You may not be from Chicago, but somebody you know will see that post, or somebody they know, the 6 degrees of separation. Guys, that could be a game changer for all of us across the country if we get him for mayor. His #1 cause is shared parenting. And you realize Chicago, all the violence and all the stuff that they're having there, it's not a gun problem, it's a fatherless problem. So if you imagine what would happen. Mike Pence, we're going to have breakfast with him, the vice president. Once again, Jeff and Melissa, I'm taking them with me next week. And then Senator Blunt, who's been just a great supporter of ours. But what we need to do is is have a new strategy. They always say, if what you're doing isn't working, it should be a red flag, you got to change something. And it's sort of like, I give the analogy, not going to go into a lot of details, but for those of you as old as I am, you can remember the 1980 Olympics when Herb Brooks took that team to the Olympics that wasn't expected. The goal back then, the Soviets won year after year after year in ice hockey, and the goal was never to win the gold, it was to win the silver, because you just knew the Soviets were going to win the gold. Year after year after year that was happening, and Herb Brooks said, no, we're going to have a totally different strategy. And so that's what we're doing right now. There's a lot of parts to this. Some of you have heard over the last 6 months I've been revealing parts. But #1 is educating people. We have to educate people about the proper way to talk to legislators. Protesting will not draw a legislator to you. It will push them away from you. So we need to watch the tone of how we do things. We've got to have organizational unity, and that's what I love. I love when I look out and, Jesse West has been on, we're on, it should be the Jesse West tour, because I think he's been on every one of them with me. But when I see groups, and you know, his cohort in Illinois, I tell you what, Chad Loudermilk, that guy is just dynamite with what he does. And Elected Americans for Parental Equality and all the different groups here that all say, you know what, let's just sort of lock arms. And there's going to be time when someone has to take the lead. Like this time, it's about Title 4D. And I love the unity that these guys show. Their attitude is, Mark, what you're doing is going to help us in Texas, so you take the lead on that. And if you'll notice, they all came up and it was all about, hey, what can we do with Title 4D? Why? Because if we get that, we're going to be able to help their organization for the next event. So I just love the fact that everybody's creating some unity here. But we've got to make sure we do that. You can't be shooting people in their own foxhole. Some of you know that I've been shot at a few times with some of the other groups. You can't buy into it. If somebody shoots at you on Facebook, don't respond. Okay? You're not going to win a battle by that. If you're fighting for change, you've got to accept the fact there's going to be people that don't like you. I apologize in advance. I just know that a room this size, some of you can't stand my personality. You're thinking that guy is a dork, he's got a high-pitched voice, he looks like Ben Stiller, he rambles on, and I'm okay with that. I don't have to convince the world. My hope is that maybe one of the other speakers that you related to. My also hope, though, is that if you can't stand me, at least put up with me. The same way as I said, if it's a Democrat in office, even though I'm a hardcore Republican, like LaShawn Ford is a hardcore Democrat, you better believe I support him because he's a shared parenting supporter. But we can't have drama between us fighting. If somebody puts you down, you know, my attitude has always been, any time that I waste trying to respond to something is time I should be using in a positive direction, doing something else. So just learn to live with it. And I know it hurts sometimes. Like I said, I've seen some of the things that people put on Facebook about me. If you're going to make change, it's going to happen to you. So just get used to it, guys. You can't respond. But we need to make sure that we all have unity. We're going to have some social media videos. We've been working on creating videos. Jeff Morgan's helping us. We're recording some of these, and Dwayne and Cheryl are going to help to edit them, and we're going to put them out in little segment sound bites that people can start sharing on Facebook. We're going to have some call to actions, as Josh was talking about. We're going to be announcing the Sustained Giver program in a couple of minutes here. But you know, the unity that we all had, some of you got a chance to see May 20th when we started pulling some of these organizations together. In the past, most organizations were almost in competition with each other. That happens in everything. That's not just unique to shared parenting. Any industry, any type of an issue, when you get many organizations that are new to an issue, they're going to have infighting. It's a fact of nature. Fortunately, though, people are starting to realize, you know, there's some power in unity if we can all start working together. So, oops, we're behind us. Oh, there we go. So, you know, I'm not going to name them all, but like I said, we've just got so many great organizations across the country that are all starting to work together, some great people. Wish I had the time to go into every single one of the names. We've got to make sure, as I said, we're working together. We'll skip that one. And just sort of wrap it up here. A couple things that we need to be working on. Josh talked about it, and I think several other people talked about it. There's three main things that everybody in this room can do. Number one, we need you subscribing to the afesp.com database. So if you haven't done it yet, that's the number one thing you need to do. We will not be doing call to actions on Facebook. If you want to know what's going on. So yeah, the blue sheets, the most important part of tonight. Please do not leave tonight without one of these filled out. We need everything on there. The name, the address, city, state, zip code, email, and phone. Absolutely critical. If you want to be a part of the change, and I'm not trying to be melodramatic, I'm just telling you, in the next 12 and a half months, I believe we are going to have one of the most monumental, history-making changes to family law in the last 40 years. And if you want to be a part of it, we need this filled out and turned in. So please do me a favor and fill this out so that we can make sure that we have a way of contacting you. Second thing is some of the training. I'm going to be doing a training in St. Louis. I know some of you can't do this, but if there's any way you can fly to St. Louis, it's Saturday, October 6th. It's on a Saturday. It'll be from 4 to 6 o'clock. As I go to state to state to state, I see so many people who their heart's in the right place. They want to meet with legislators, but it's just like anything else. Without a law degree, I could not do what Melissa does. Without a million degrees, I couldn't do what Ruth does. You know, you couldn't imagine going to your doctor's office and trying to do what your doctor does. You can't pick something up in just a few hours here and there. And so many people mean well, but they end up creating more damage just because they don't understand how to deal with legislators. So I'm taking an entire day. I've done hundreds of these training sessions that I've been to, most of which I usually have to pay $400 to $500 for to get these trainings, and they're generic ones. On October 6th, we're going to go through exactly and specifically, if you're in shared parenting, how do you deal with the media? What are words and key phrases and sound bites that you use and that you stay away from? How do you give an interview to make sure that they can't edit and splice out, as most of you know, they edit and splice out sound bites, and the worst part of your interview is what they're going to take, and that's what's going to show up on the news. So how do you conduct an interview to watch to make sure that you can't get one of those sound bites in there? We're going to talk about how do you build a relationship with the legislative aides and why it's so critical to use the power of that. How to do the strategy. It's just like playing pool or playing chess. Every move lines you up to the next move. You don't just win the battle, you're going to win the war. So on October 6th, we're going to go through every detail, not every detail, but a lot of details that if you're new to this, or even if you've been around for years and you want to take it to the next level, you need to be at that October 6th. It's in St. Louis. Southwest Airlines still has some very, very low fares from Austin to St. Louis. So if you can make it to that, I highly recommend. Send me a private message if you're interested. And then the last thing is something that we're going to be doing, a sustained giver program. And this is one, as most of you know, it costs a lot of money to put this thing on. And the budget that we have is laughable compared to what the NRA, the pharmaceutical industry, the realtor industry, these organizations are spending tens of millions of dollars a year for their lobbying efforts. We don't need that much because we've got an arsenal of people across the country. But we do need some seed money to be able to make that type of a change. And I realize everybody's tight on a budget. Some of you know I'm not exaggerating. There have been months this past year where my heat was turned off. The only time my heat was on was when Levi was with me, several times this past winter. And there's still, to this day, there's a lot of times where if there's food in the house, it's going to Levi before it goes to me. And so I know everybody's on a budget in here. All I'm asking you is, for one chance to make a change, could we come up with just a little bit? I know some of you may be able to help out a lot, but even $5 a month, could you give up one, I'm not a latte person, but I don't know what a latte costs. It just sounds like a silly name to me. But could you give up something like that once a month and commit to donating $5 a month or the 10, the 50, the ultimate goal is we're trying to come up with 100 people that will give 100 a month. We already had 2 people this weekend that already committed to that. But can you imagine if we knew that we had that operational budget every month that we can start from, instead of being distracted with, oh my gosh, we're not going to have the money for this, we're not going to have the money for this. If we can focus on the goal at hand, we can get a lot accomplished. So if there's any way that anybody would be willing to commit to that, please let us know. We do have, you guys are the first group that's ever going to be able to be a part of that. And I don't know about you, but I'm always the nostalgic one. I always like to be able to say, hey, I was there when that happened. And so the first people today, we're going to have you sign up and put your name, your address, and your phone number in here so we can contact you and your email. But the people on these cards will literally be the first people ever that got a chance to be a part of that. And like I said, I'm just a nostalgic person. I just think it'd be so cool that when we get these changes made for you to be able to say, you know what? I was there. I committed $5 a month. I committed $10 a month. I committed $25. I was a part of that change. So if you guys can, we definitely would appreciate you doing that. But like I said, I really believe in my heart. And I've been in politics for 30 years, not in the shared parenting movement. But I've seen a lot of bills over the years, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And I'll just tell you guys, we are at a place in history where I believe from my heart, I'm not giving you phony hope, I'm not being melodramatic. I'm just telling you, if you've ever thought, is there a chance, from the bottom of my heart I can tell you, I wouldn't have come down to Texas and taken time away from other things I could be doing unless I knew in my heart, guys, it can be done with Title IV and it can be done in Texas or I wouldn't be here this week. So we're just asking you guys to start realizing, if you can get to the last slide, but getting back to what Herb Brooks, most people thought the U.S. would never win a gold medal in hockey. They'd had their butts kicked for 20 years, and everybody said it's absolutely impossible. And Herb Brooks said it's doable. We just have to, number one, believe that it's possible, that we can do it. We've got to work harder than anyone else, and we've got to create a new strategy. And I'll tell you what, just by showing up here tonight, when you look around the room, you want to have belief that you're in the right place at the right time with the right people. And I'm not talking to me, I'm talking about the people in Texas you are in the right place with. So we've got the right people, you can believe in that. We've got to work hard. We've got to work hard on getting people to share messages on Facebook, to build up that database, to get some fundraising going, and then we have to do some of these new strategies. And some of these guys got a chance to see some of the things that I talked about with some of the legislators. There's maneuvers that you can make to get bills passed. And unfortunately, we've just in the past, people haven't had the background in politics to know some of these things. But by implementing some of these strategies, by partnering with some of these other groups like the NRA or Family Research Council or Eagle Forum and getting partnerships with some of these other coalitions, guys, we will become a force to be reckoned with in the next 12 months that the shared parenting movement has never seen in the last 25 years. And I'm telling you, every single one of you guys is a part of that. And when you think of what Herb Brooks did, early on it was all about hockey. And the only people following her were people like me. I played hockey back then. And I can still remember as a kid being glued to that TV set every time one of those hockey games came on. But after the U.S. started winning some games, all of a sudden it was amazing how it went from the sports part of the news to the opening of the news every single night. And if anybody's old enough, you remember what I mean. Because even people who didn't like hockey, they started watching because at the start of the news every night, it talked about the U.S. hockey team and where things were going in hockey. And all of a sudden it became a buzz. I still remember at my school, everybody started talking about the hockey team. And I can still remember, like, that's weird, I know I get so emotional talking about this, but I can still remember as a kid watching that very game. And any of you that were old enough, you remember what it was like watching that game when the U.S. beat the Soviets. I mean, just absolutely glued to that TV set watching that game. But it wasn't a game anymore. It was about America. If you remember, back then, the U.S. had unbelievable inflation rates, gas prices were skyrocketing. We were in the pits as a country back then. And people had lost hope in America. And all of a sudden, a bunch of kids playing hockey brought back the American dream all across America that said, you know what? America's #1 again. The United States is rising up. And it changed from being a hockey game to inspiring an entire country. And I'll tell you what, we are on pace to do that right now. Yes, there's a lot of us early on that started on. It was just about us. But I'll tell you what, there's other people that are realizing, you know what, I may not be divorced, but I'll tell you what, that cause is affecting all of us. With what's going on with teenage pregnancies, high school dropout rates, incarceration rates, behavioral problems, drug abuse problems that are all caused by ripping one parent out of a child's life. And person by person across the country, from different organizations, from Eagle Forum, from NRA, from your church, from your school, from your neighbors that are hearing about this, are rising up. And I see it on my own Facebook page. I see my personal friends coming out. We're doing a parade. We're taking a chapter out of Jesse West's thing in St. Louis this weekend and doing a parade. And I have personal friends have no interest in the shared parenting movement. But they're sending me private messages saying, hey, where do I need to be on Saturday? I want to come be there for the parade. Every one of you is doing the same thing, and I promise you, we're about to do exactly what the 1980 hockey team did. We are going to bring a movement and a cause all across this country that's going to unite people and say, you know what? Our kids deserve a mom and a dad. And we're going to stand up and we are going to change history. And I promise you, just like every one of us felt, because I still remember, and like I said, if you're old enough, you remember, every one of us, we felt like we won that hockey game. And if you're from a city that ever won a Super Bowl, or if you might win a Super Bowl down here? Wait, did you guys win a Super Bowl?
Only 5.
Oh, okay. Oh, Dallas Cowboys. I don't even think of Dallas Cowboys. Son of a gun. Okay, yeah, so Dallas Cowboys. That was my team when I was a kid. Because we had the football team that really wasn't a team. But you know what I'm talking about then. If your team wins the Super Bowl or the World Series, everybody, I mean, they're skipping work, they're ripping their shirts off, they're painting themselves, you know, blue and white and walking down the street with a star on their chest. I mean, you feel like you won the game even though you didn't even play football. That's exactly what it's going to be like, because I'm telling you, every person in this room, you're a part of the team, and we're going to change history. So thanks again, guys. Please don't forget, see us if you can sign up for the Sustained Giver program, get the blue cards filled out. And if you want, we do still have some merchandise in the back, and we're going to be doing a raffle in a little bit for one of the hockey pucks for Mike Ruzioni, who played on the hockey team. So thanks again, guys, and we'll see you in a little bit. Yeah, if anybody else wants to get a raffle ticket, real quick before we do the drawing, but yeah, we're going to do we'll do the drawing for the puck.
That is the hockey team too. Like the one he would show.
So Anybody else want any raffle tickets?
If you need a raffle ticket,
Last
raise your hand
call.
quick.
Let's have someone else draw besides me because